Ma'am, lower your voice. I stood in the emergency room hallway with Lily limp against my chest, vomit soaking through the sleeve of my sweatshirt while fluorescent lights blurred above us. She can't see me, I said, trying to hand over the scan envelope from urgent care. Please just look at this. Dr. Evan Mercer didn't even take it. He barely slowed down long enough to shine a penlight into Lily's eyes. 2 seconds, maybe less. She's probably dealing with a viral migraine, he said. I stared at him. She collapsed at school today, she forgot where her bedroom was, her hand keeps twitching. He glanced at my shaking fingers instead of my daughter. Are you always this anxious? People in the waiting room looked over immediately. A nurse behind the desk lowered her eyes. Security shifted closer. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell for updates. Then Dr. Mercer signed Lily's discharge papers, without opening the scan I was still holding in my hand. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. You're sending her home. We have actual emergencies waiting, he said flatly. I felt heat rise into my face. Lily's left hand twitched again against my shoulder. Something is wrong with her, I whispered. But he was already walking away. Nobody stopped him. Nobody looked at the scan. I carried Lily through the parking garage just after midnight, trying not to cry while balancing her weight against my chest. She felt heavier than usual, too still. In the car, I buckled her into the back seat and turned around. Baby, stay awake for me. Her eyelids fluttered weakly. Mommy, I'm here. Why can't I see your face? My stomach dropped. I grabbed my phone immediately and called the hospital while climbing back into the driver's seat. My daughter's getting worse, I said as soon as someone answered. The ER doctor just discharged her, but something is seriously wrong. The operator started asking for Lily's information. Then I heard a choking sound behind me. I turned around. Lily's mouth hung open. Her chest wasn't moving. The paramedics filled my apartment within minutes. Move back, one of them shouted. I stood barefoot beside the couch while they laid Lily on the living room floor and started CPR. Every compression shook her tiny body. One medic glanced at me. She was discharged tonight. I nodded. His expression hardened instantly. The ambulance ride became a blur of sirens, radio chatter, and monitors screaming in uneven bursts. I sat pressed against the wall staring at Lily's hand while a paramedic forced oxygen into her lungs. At the hospital, nobody called me dramatic anymore. Nobody called it anxiety. They rushed Lily straight into the ICU. A younger neurologist stopped me outside the room. You mentioned a scan from urgent care. I handed him the unopened envelope. You're the first person who's actually looking at it, I said. He slid the disc into a computer nearby. The second the images appeared, his face changed. He zoomed in. Then zoomed in again. I could feel my pulse hammering. What is it? I asked. He didn't answer right away. And in that silence, I realized something terrifying. Someone should have caught this already. The signs had been building for days. Earlier that week, Lily dropped crayons because her left hand felt sleepy. She forgot simple words. One morning she stared at our refrigerator and asked me what it was called. Even the school nurse brushed it off. She probably needs water and rest, she told me. And honestly, part of me had believed it because I was already used to people treating me like an overreacting young mom. The neurologist finally looked at me. Who discharged her tonight? Dr. Mercer. The room went quiet. One nurse stopped typing. Another exchanged a look with him before quickly turning away. Then the neurologist cleared his throat. I need to contact surgery. He left before I could ask another question. A few minutes later, while I stood outside Lily's ICU room, I overheard 2 nurses whispering near the medication station. That's the 3rd complaint this year. Doesn't matter, Mercer's untouchable. Before I could process what they meant, Alarms exploded inside Lily's room. Her body started convulsing violently in the hospital bed. A seizure. Doctors rushed in from every direction. I slammed against the glass. Lily. A nurse grabbed my arm before I could run inside. Then, through the chaos, I noticed someone entering the ICU. Not a doctor. A hospital administrator in a dark suit. He walked straight toward me before anyone updated me on my daughter. "We need to discuss," he said carefully, "what you post online about tonight." I recorded the video from the hospital parking garage just after sunrise. I looked awful. My hair was tangled, my sweatshirt still smelled like vomit and ambulance smoke. But I didn't care anymore. I held Lily's discharge papers in one hand and the untouched scan envelope in the other. "This is the scan the ER doctor refused to open before he sent my daughter home," I said into the camera. My voice cracked. "Now she's on a ventilator." I posted the video before I could talk myself out of it. By noon, it was everywhere. Thousands of shares. Hundreds of comments. Then the messages started pouring in. My son almost died after Mercer discharged him. He ignored my mother's stroke symptoms. That hospital protects him. I sat outside Lily's ICU room scrolling through story after story, while reporters started calling my phone. Then the hospital released a public statement. Patient received appropriate evaluation and care consistent with presented symptoms. I read the sentence 3 times. Appropriate care. My daughter was unconscious upstairs. I walked straight into the hospital lobby holding the printed statement. "You call this appropriate?" I shouted at the front desk. Heads turned immediately. Cameras from local news crews swung toward me near the entrance. A woman from administration hurried over. "Ma'am, this isn't the place." "The place," I snapped. "Your doctor never even opened her scan." Someone whispered nearby. "That's the mom from the video." A reporter stepped closer. "Is it true security escorted you out while your daughter was still symptomatic?" The lobby erupted with questions. Then I saw Dr. Mercer appear at the top of the staircase overlooking reception. Calm, composed, like none of this touched him. He walked downstairs while cameras followed him. "This situation is tragic," he said evenly, "but Ms. Reynolds has omitted important details regarding her daughter's medical history and delayed care." I stared at him in disbelief. "What?" She became emotional and failed to follow discharge instructions properly. For a second, I actually saw doubt spreading through the crowd. It made me sick. Then a nurse brushed past me quickly. She slipped folded papers into my hand. "Look at the timestamp," she whispered. Security noticed immediately. "Hey." 2 guards grabbed her before she reached the hallway. I unfolded the photocopy. Urgent care scan uploaded, 10:14 p.m. Lily discharged, 10:57 p.m. My chest tightened. Dr. Mercer had the scan 43 minutes before he sent us home. "He knew," I whispered. Across the lobby, the nurse started crying as security dragged her through a staff-only door. A reporter shoved a microphone toward me. "Do you believe the hospital is covering this up?" I looked up toward the second-floor railing. Dr. Mercer stood there watching me. Expressionless. That night, while sitting beside Lily's ICU bed, my phone buzzed with a blocked voicemail. A distorted voice said, "If you want to know why your daughter was really discharged, stop talking to reporters." I almost didn't go to the diner. The voicemail replayed in my head the entire drive. "If you want to know why your daughter was really discharged." The place was nearly empty at 2 in the morning. Then I saw the nurse from the hospital lobby sitting alone in a booth near the back. Without scrubs, she looked exhausted. "You got fired?" I asked quietly as I sat down. She laughed once without humor. Before I even made it to my car. She slid a manila envelope across the table. "You need to understand something," she said. "Your daughter wasn't ignored because Mercer forgot to check the scan." I stared at her. He saw it. Everything inside me went cold. The nurse explained that the ER had already been under internal review that night after another patient nearly died waiting for treatment. Administration was tracking admission numbers, delays, and overcrowding. Mercer was getting hammered over metrics, she said. He kept trying to clear beds before inspectors arrived. What does that have to do with Lily? I asked. The nurse swallowed. Her scan triggered an automatic red priority alert in the system. Brain bleed risk. Every attending physician on duty would have seen it. I felt physically sick. He knew she was bleeding. He knew she needed immediate transfer. The waitress passed nearby, and both of us went silent until she walked away. Then the nurse leaned closer. Several of us objected to the discharge. One nurse documented concerns directly in Lily's chart. She opened the envelope. Inside were screenshots. System logs. Patient notes. One line was highlighted. Pediatric neuro consult, recommended prior to discharge. It disappeared later that night, the nurse whispered. Someone deleted it. Mercer. I don't know, but administration protected him. Meanwhile, Lily remained unconscious after emergency surgery. Every update from the doctors sounded worse. Swelling. Vision damage. Possible long-term impairment. At the same time, legal letters from the hospital started arriving at my apartment warning me against false public allegations. Online, strangers attacked me constantly. Why didn't I demand another opinion? Why was my daughter uninsured? Why did I leave the hospital? Then a national news station requested a live interview. I almost refused. Dr. Mercer's lawyers were already painting me as unstable. But while sitting backstage during makeup prep, my phone rang. It was the neurologist. His voice sounded exhausted. The surgery confirmed prolonged bleeding, he said quietly. I closed my eyes. Then he said the sentence I would never forget. If Lily had stayed that first night, this likely would have been survivable without permanent injury. That was the moment I finally broke. Not anger. Not panic. I folded forward in the chair and sobbed into my hands while studio staff quietly looked away. A producer touched my shoulder seconds later. We're live in 30. I picked up the envelope of screenshots and walked toward the studio lights while the countdown began. 5, 4, 3. The interviewer barely finished introducing me before I placed the documents on the table. These are the records the hospital claimed didn't exist, I said. Behind me, the studio screens lit up one by one. ER upload timestamps. Deleted chart notes. Lily's discharge papers. And finally, proof that the urgent care scan alert had already been acknowledged inside the hospital system before Dr. Mercer discharged her. The anchor looked stunned. You're saying the doctor knew your daughter's scan showed a possible brain bleed? I'm saying he had the warning, I replied, and he sent her home anyway. By the next morning, the story was everywhere. National news channels replayed the interview non-stop. Former hospital staff started coming forward anonymously describing pressure to reduce admissions during inspections and staffing shortages. One former resident described Dr. Mercer perfectly. When metrics were under review, difficult patients got pushed out fast. The hospital tried controlling the damage immediately. Executives blamed communication failures and system misunderstandings. Then leaked internal emails surfaced online. One message had been sent while Lily was still in surgery. We need to contain liability exposure before this escalates publicly. Public outrage exploded. Protesters gathered outside the hospital. Reporters camped near the entrance for days. Dr. Mercer was suspended pending investigation. But the moment that truly destroyed him came during his deposition months later. I watched from another room beside my attorney while he answered questions under oath. Yes, he admitted stiffly, I was aware the scan had uploaded into the system. Did you review it before discharge? I intended to. The attorney slid printed access logs across the table. These records show you received the neurological alert at 10:16 p.m. and finalized discharge paperwork at 10:57 p.m. Dr. Mercer shifted in his seat. You still never opened the scan, correct? A long silence followed. Then quietly, correct. For the first time, I saw him without control. The medical board hearing happened 6 months later. Families filled the chamber. Not just mine. Other former patients testified about ignored symptoms, rushed discharges, and missed diagnoses. Dr. Mercer sat rigidly at the defense table, avoiding eye contact, while testimony piled up around him. When the ruling came down, his medical license was suspended indefinitely. Outside the courthouse, cameras exploded with questions. I ignored them all. Because none of it changed what waited at rehab every morning. Lily survived. But survival looked different now. Her left leg dragged slightly when she walked. Part of her vision never fully returned. Some days she became frustrated trying to hold crayons correctly during therapy. One afternoon, she fell trying to step across a foam balance beam. Why do I keep falling? She asked quietly. I knelt beside her and finally cried in front of her. Not the controlled tears from interviews. Not the silent crying in hospital bathrooms. Real grief. But Lily kept improving. Slowly. Painfully. Videos of her relearning how to draw spread online, after supporters helped fund her rehabilitation. The nurse who exposed the records eventually received whistleblower protection after public pressure forced an investigation into retaliation inside the hospital. New pediatric escalation policies were introduced statewide because of the case. 1 year later, I walked back through the same hospital entrance holding Lily's hand for a follow-up appointment. Everything looked different. Large signs covered the ER walls. PATINTS may request secondary review. Neurological symptoms require escalation protocol. Near reception, another young mother stood clutching paperwork, with the exact same frightened expression I once had. I stopped beside her. If you think something's wrong with your child, I told her softly, don't let them make you doubt yourself. She nodded silently. Then Lily squeezed my hand as we walked past the ER doors together. The same doors where one ignored scan changed both of our lives forever. And in the end, the scan he refused to read became the evidence that destroyed everything he tried to protect.